Hello. My name is Georgia Court. I'm the proprietor at Bookstore Number One, and we are absolutely thrilled this evening to have with us Mary Alice Monroe and Elin Hilderbrand. It should be a wonderful evening. In the chat, if you scroll to the top, you will find links where you can buy their books through Bookstore Number One, and I hope you'll take advantage of that, and it can be mailed to you if you are not local to Sarasota. So no worries there. What's going to happen is that I will introduce our two speakers, then they will have a lovely chat among themselves, and half an hour or so into it, then we will go ahead and go to questions. And since there's a good-sized group here this evening, I would suggest that mainly you use the chat function to place to put your questions, if you wouldn't mind doing that. So I'm going to get going by introducing our two speakers. Mary Alice Monroe is with us this evening. Finding her true calling in environmental fiction and as a passionate conservationist, Mary Alice Monroe serves on the board of the Leatherback Trust, the South Carolina Aquarium, Friends of Coastal Carolina, and is a certified volunteer with the Island Turtle Team.
Oh, yes.
When do you have time to write? My goodness. She is also on the honorary board of the Pat Conroy Literary Center. She has won numerous awards, including the prestigious Southern Prize for Fiction, several Reader's Choice Awards, and is a member of the South Carolina Academy of Authors 2018 Literary Hall of Fame. She's the co-creator and co-host of the new literary sensation, Friends in Fiction, a weekly web show and podcast, and her first middle grade book, The Islanders, is coming out in June, but tonight we're talking about her adult book. She's going to be in conversation with the wonderful Elin Hilderbrand. And Elin tells us that she's the proud mother of three, a dedicated Peloton rider. She doesn't even mention that she's a writer, by the way, in her bio. She's an aspiring book influencer and an enthusiastic at-home cook, and you can follow her on Instagram at Elin Hilderbrand to watch her Cringe cooking show. She's also a grateful 7-year breast cancer survivor. Most of her books are centered around Nantucket, where she lives, and Golden Girl is her 27th novel. Mary Alice and Elin, we're looking forward to your conversation.
I just have to add another anecdote to her resume. Elin is a great favorite of Friends in Fiction. She is.
I do. I love it. Hello all. Hello. Mary Alice. I have my copy of The Summer of Lost and Found. And so I thought what I would do would be we'll start out talking about the book and then we can get a little bit more general.
Okay. Sounds good.
So starting by saying that The Summer of Lost and Found is part of the Beach House series. Can you talk a little bit about how, for those, if there's anybody who doesn't know at this point, like talk a little bit about how that series came to be?
I will, thanks. Can you believe, Elin, it's 20 years this year.
No.
20 years. I mean, I only intended to write one book when this all started. About 20 years ago, I came to Isle of Palms, where I live, and we'd been visiting for a long time. But my sister, who's an artist, told me about a sea turtle that had come ashore. She lives in Florida. And Floridians know turtles. And this turtle with a tank-like crawl was coming ashore. And she described how the turtle cried these tears. Now you get that. See, I can see your expression. It's a mother's tears. That's the metaphor that I saw. So when I moved, the first thing I did was join the Island Turtle Team because I knew I wanted to know more about this animal so I could write about it. Well, I didn't know it would become lifelong. It was just a passion. I got sucked in so deeply by these ancient mariners. And over that summer, and this was 20 years ago, 22 actually, when I first joined, I realized there were a lot of disorientation problems, a lot of issues facing the livelihood of these sea turtles. And I was writing about women's lives, excuse me. And I decided that I would try to put the turtles in this story in such a way that my readers would know about them. I didn't want to write nonfiction, but I wanted to create a story world that was authentic so that they felt them and they saw them. And if they see it through the character's eyes, they feel it. And that's where we live as readers and writers. So that was The Beach House. There was a mother-daughter reconciliation novel. And I started it with a Rutledge family in Charleston, of an abused wife, a socialite in Charleston, who went to Isle of Palms, where her beach house was, a little modest little place, but it's where she loved to be. She was a turtle lady. Her daughter comes home at age 40, and there was an estrangement between them because I wanted to use the turtles as the model. When a turtle returns home to nest for the first time after 20 years, they dig a nest, they lay the eggs, and they leave. And that's their biological model. But for humans, it's abandonment. So that's how I brought in what I learned from the turtles to the story, and I always do that. Anyway, this was a book that I really tried to say, all right, how can I bring a little lesson in awareness in the novel while still being a novelist? I'm a storyteller. And I wrote The Beach House. It was different than any book I'd written before. And I put it out there. And honey, it was a little mass market. In fact, I think
Just a
here it
little
is.
thing.
No fancy hardcover. It was a little mass market.
So
Dallas showed this to me, Kaysa, here when he came to visit. And I knew I wrote something special, but it was under contract, off it went.
right.
And I didn't have New York Times on my radar. But it was my first New York Times hit. And it was old school. It wasn't the internet. It spread word of mouth.
Right.
And it was only meant to be one novel, but whenever I had something else I wanted to say about the beach or the turtles or anything in my hometown area on the marine issues, I brought it back to this family, and it became a series. And you're lucky when you have a series that people identify and follow.
Yes.
So you don't take that for granted. You really don't. And when they say, please don't stop, or please write another book, I do write other books in between, standalones. But I feel a responsibility to keep this story going for them and for me too, because you know how hard it is to say goodbye to characters you love.
Of course.
And so that began it. And this is the 7th book in the series, but each book, and it sounds so corny to say it, but it's true. When you write a book in a series where each book is intended to be a standalone, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You can only read this one book and it's fine. But you hope they go back. Well, you have a series too, Ellen, so you know.
Yes, I have a couple of them. They cannot be read as standalones, but that's one of the things that I really.
Oh, that's a different kind of series then.
I mean,
yeah.
Well, my Paradise series should not be read as standalones. Neither of them should be. They really are more like serial. But that's what
one
I really
feeds the other.
Admired about The Summer of Lost and Found is that it can be read as a standalone novel, and you give lots of great background then so that you can almost, like the books that I hadn't read, I could almost imagine, the things that transpire in them. So I was definitely like, I should go back to the beginning and read them all in order.
Thank you.
But and I feel like a lot of readers will feel that way, especially if they're new to you. You can completely read this. And you understand when you're reading it that you're reading about sort of the new generation, because the kids that are in this book are, Cooper is my son's age. So I definitely identified with him big time. But they're young, they're young and they're growing up. And I know that this is the third or fourth generation in this beach house that you've been writing about. So let me ask you this question. Did you worry? Because a lot of times when I'm writing characters that are like way younger, like my children's generation, like I have to ask my kids how they convert, everybody's on Snapchat and they say things like, oh,
yes.
Jack snapped me, but I left him open. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means.
What that means.
Yeah. Did you have
Oh,
to
I have a
act?
funny story, actually, 100%. I had started well, first of all, I wrote the book in real time, and it was changing a lot what I wanted to say. But I remember towards the end, this was the new generation. I called my working title was The Beach House, The Next Generation,
Right.
and which was kind of used by Star Trek. But I knew that wasn't going to be the final title. I knew that I wanted to have a younger and I wanted to be on target with this young generation. So my daughter, who's 30, read the book and said, "Mom," especially there's a love triangle. Let me
Yeah.
start there.
Yeah.
There's a love triangle. And Gordon is the boyfriend. Linnea's the young 20-something-year-old who's lost her job and is trying to take care of everybody and sort of reach out a helping hand and inviting them to the beach house. So Gordon, her boyfriend from the previous year, is coming in from England. But lo and behold, her old break her heart boyfriend is next door. And it's this love triangle she doesn't want to be in. And so when Gordon wants to come, my daughter Greta is reading it, and I'm creating all these bizarre scenarios about why they can't be in the same house. She goes, "Mama, of course he'd want to be in her room. Of course he's going to want to stay with her. What? They're together." And I'm like, "Oh no, not my beach house."
That is so funny.
Oh no. And so he convinced me that I had to look at it from the youthful point of view. This is what happened. So I rewrote it, and I was younger, and I think I did it. But what was funny is there's a scene with the mother who comes into the beach house.
Oh yeah.
That was all my feelings.
Yeah.
It's a brothel. What are you doing? And it made for some funny scenes because it allowed for me to have the generational points of view.
Right.
You know, what was considered proper, especially in Charleston. And with the young kids hey, this is the way we roll.
Right. And that is not the most scandalous thing that happens in this book. I will say that. Okay. I want to talk about your use of the pandemic because I'm going to call it, I think this is the first novel to come out that actually addresses the pandemic. Very difficult because when you were writing this, we didn't know what was going to happen. I feel like even since the end of last year, and I don't know what kind of schedule you're on, but my book was due at Christmas.
Yeah.
And we didn't even, I mean, things were so vastly different that I don't even feel like we can imagine being here, like where the country is on, May 11th. You couldn't even imagine that back in November, December. So talk a little bit about your decision to set it during the pandemic and what that process was like.
What a great question, because that was the big question at the beginning. I was thinking of other stories, and it suddenly, you're on shutdown and you're not going anywhere. I'm not going to research another species. And I was stymied like everyone else. Well, I'm not on book tour. What am I going to do? And much less that, what am I going to write about? And it pretty quickly came to me that I would write about this family, the Rutledges. I write about, despite all those species that I have as a backdrop, what I write about are families and women's relationships, the lovers, father, son, mother, daughter, friends, like you, Ellen. And I thought, what better time to look at this unique time in history? This is a huge moment that we're going to look back on in 20 years. This is like a war that we're going to look and see, how did we get through it? How did families survive? And how did we come out of it? And I thought, I chronicle when I'm in nature. I go out in nature and I keep my ears open, my eyes wide, and my mouth shut. And I just observe and I take notes. That's kind of what I did with the human species this time. And I watched, so many different areas of this pandemic because I was affected in many ways, both by personal loss of life in my family, as well as my sister. I'm one of 10 children, and 3 of my sisters were trapped, one in LA, one in Chicago, and my niece, and they all came to my mountain house to live. I said, get out of the city, don't be trapped, come to my mountain house. And they came. And then I looked at my daughters who took over my beach house.
Okay.
Which meant I couldn't go. And because, they were not as careful as I thought I should be.
Right.
And I saw my that generation of young mother trying to struggle with how do you become a substitute teacher? Putting your kids in, they were fighting and screaming and just trying to keep their kids entertained and in school during this time. There's the comedy of spraying the boxes. Remember, we were spraying our boxes and choosing the best masks and all that. There was a lot of research. But here's the thing, Ellen. Because I was writing this book in real time without pre-research, which is my usual modus operandi, I changed my mind because I was living it. I changed my mind of what the story should be about, and more importantly, what I wanted to say in the novel. That's what I always look for. What do I want to say to my readers through my story? And in April, it was different than June, because then we didn't believe it was still going to continue in June. By fall, it was different again. And by the time I finished in December, I had pulled my hair out. I really think I gained 15 pounds. And I was just, it was the hardest book I ever wrote, because I'm structuralist and I was a pantser for this one. And I have to say that when I finished, I really figured out what it was I was going to say. It was hard. It was a hard one advice. And it was basically, you have to learn to pivot. We all know this. And that you have to treasure each day, that we're lucky to have gotten through this, your gratitude for your health, for your friends, for your loved ones. And I always heard Eckhart Tolle talk about living each day to the fullest. And I never got it. I never understood it until the pandemic, where I'm in book tour and I'm thinking about tomorrow and the next day and the future, right?
Right.
But now take a deep breath. Who am I with? Right now, Ellen, I'm with you.
Right, exactly.
And it's a different perspective. It's a choice.
One of the things that I liked about the book, which I also found hilarious, and everyone, and it won't be a spoiler, but like at the beginning of the book, they're like, okay, well, we're supposed to stay 6 feet apart. And like, nobody's wearing masks. I think the idea of like the masks to them is like, you remember like how scary it was?
Yeah.
I was at the Virgin Islands on St. John, and I had to fly home, and I'd stayed 2 extra weeks because my family was like, don't come back.
Yeah.
So bad. And a girlfriend said, well, I'm going to give you a mask to fly in. And I thought to myself, oh my God, am I going to put it on my face? Like, what am I going to do with it? I was terrified of the thing. She put it in a little paper bag, and I'm like, I am terrified of this mask, but I did wear it on the plane. But it felt, remember like the first time you so foreign. And that's how the characters are like, okay. And, David comes home and he
gets sick.
He gets sick and he has to stay away for 2 weeks, and nobody's understand like the ways that we did not understand what was happening. And then the great thing about this book, one of the many great things, is the way that the characters like are gaining like the knowledge and the understanding and the comfort and the lingo and at the beginning, everybody's calling it the coronavirus, and then by they're all calling it COVID-19. And And it was it was very, very deftly done, the way you brought us along with like, okay, and this is what happened. So in that respect, I mean, it is a fine documentation of what we all lived through in the past year. And I'm
well, I have to say, I read the Times, and they did a series of articles on getting through this. And before, I was nervous because what were they going to say versus what I had said? And we really kind of hit the same notes. And I was really relaxed, especially the transformation, because they were talking about how many people, especially, discovered new strengths. So here you are at home. Time that I was with my sisters we never would have been able to live together for all those months if it wasn't for this. So that was one of the found things. And some of the characters, like Annabelle, she decided, I lost my job, but I kind of don't want to do that anymore. I want to go back to school and learn something else, which happened to my niece. So I'm really watching this happen to other people and giving it to my characters. So while I'm observing, I'm thinking, what are the lessons that they're learning? Because I'm watching people learn them in real time.
Absolutely.
And it was hopefully inspiring. That's the goal. This isn't about the negatives as much as it's really, I want people to feel at the end, this was good. I had a great feeling about this.
Oh,
And
it's definitely an uplifting. Definitely.
good.
I found it to be extremely uplifting. I'm going to read a short passage and then I have a follow-up question. And we're sort of moving
Thank you.
more into your personal life, but I want to ask. So I'm reading from the beginning of chapter 10. There are no spoilers. So everyone
Okay.
can uncover your ears.
You like the paper airplane, by the way, on the
Oh,
top
I
of the
love it.
chapters? I do too.
Love it. I absolutely love it. Linnea's favorite time of day was the very early morning when the dawn song of nearby birds pierced the night silence. She'd lie in bed and listen to the first clarion call, a blend of joy and bravery. I'm alive, this is a new day, and this is my territory. She should get behind that. After a few strident calls, the song would be returned by another bird over and over, a simple duet, until other neighboring birds joined the chorus. One of the benefits of staying at home was not having to rush out of bed to dress and dash to work. She could lie there and appreciate the concert of a new day's birth. So that struck me as so beautiful.
Thank you.
One of the gifts that the pandemic has given Linnea. My question for you is, and you can take it one of two directions. One, did you develop any new habits during the pandemic? Or like the other part of that question is just in general, what is your favorite time of the day?
Wow.
And what are
okay.
what's your favorite you know what I mean? Like this is like a ritual that she sort of starts with the pandemic, but I'm just curious about your own life and like what your favorite time of day is.
Well, the morning. That's me lying in bed, and especially in the spring when the dawn song is so loud. Right now, I like to. We have a cardinal who has a very strong song, and then it's just we know him. And to get up, and I get up early, and I look out, and we look out over the ocean, and you see that pink dawn. You cannot see that dawn and not have hope. And no matter what kind of problems you wake up with or stress, it gives you belief that, yeah, okay, I made it for another day. Here I am, and let's see what's going to happen. You know, we outran that sucker COVID-19, and let's welcome the new day. So morning time, and then I have my coffee. I'm a nut for coffee. And Linnea, I think in every one of my books. In fact, Linnea's making the coffee in this book for everybody. And you know, I have my beach house blend. I just brought that in.
That's
very excited about that. Who needs perfume when you can have your own coffee blend? And then I pretty much feed the dogs. I have a pack. And I'm the alpha. And I miss them terribly because they're not with me right now. And I feel like I'm missing my life. And then I get to work. I really do. I try. And it doesn't mean I write the story every day, although we're trying to do sprints with the girls with Friends in Fiction, as much as I'm present to the story that I'm telling. It could be research. It could be character sketches. It could be anything, but you're present. I work pretty hard throughout the whole day. And unfortunately, unlike you, you're the Peloton queen, I'm inspired by you, Ellen. I am so getting better. My daughter just brought me to Mexico and said, this is an intervention. Wow. So I had a personal trainer and vitamins. And she said, Mama, you know, the COVID-19's over. You know, the COVID-19 pounds is
right.
Over.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, the morning. How about you? What's your favorite time?
Oh, I'm also a morning person. I get up very, very early. I get up at 5. I either do cooking project. I mean, it depends. Like I normally start my day. I mean, I've got a house full of teenagers and 2 of them are working. So I make their lunches. I do cooking projects. A lot of times I'll film my cooking show in the very early morning.
Cooking show, that's super cool, by the way. Unbelievable that you do
that started during COVID. It's just, and like I call it the Cringe cooking show because my children are like, this is so cringe, you must take it down immediately. We are embarrassed. And I'm like, forget you guys, I'm gonna call it the Cringe cooking show. And then I do work in the morning, and then I take my daughter to school, and then I do my exercising, and my exercising is like this whole other monster.
I know I'm still humbled by your exercise routine.
Yeah. And the exercising is just a discipline. And the discipline of it just sets up then my work day.
But it also opens your mind, doesn't it? When
it
you
does.
Exercise,
it does.
It allows you. I'm trying to walk more, to get out on the beach. And actually, I live on a beach. Let's get out on the beach and walk on it to clear your head.
I think it does help. And, I read, I don't know, might have been in the SATs a long, long time ago, that when you exercise, your creative juices flow. And I do a
Yeah.
lot of writing in my head while I'm jogging, and the
Yeah.
bike is too hard to do any kind of writing. I have two very big questions, and I want to have time for everybody else's questions. So my first question, and I'm not entirely sure, but let's go back, Mary Alice, to back when the Fab Five was disclosing things that we did not know about each of the 5 members of your group. Yours was that, I believe, had something to do with you living in Paris. Is that correct?
No, that's Kristen Harmel. That was me.
What was your thing?
I'm from a big family, and I'm 10 children. And so I was born in Evanston, Illinois, and my husband was at the NIH, and we lived in DC for a long time and came here for a long time, and then moved to Isle of Palms, and that's my story. But but my husband's family has this huge farm in Vermont. And that's when I was a young bride of 19, and I used to go there for our summers. It was a huge sheep farm, 1,000 acres in the middle of the state. And I took my children there when they were young. And it was there that I think my real understanding of conservation and mindfulness of what the name of that big brown bird in the sky was. I loved animals, but I learned to name them.
Right.
And that's when the light went off. And so I taught my children that. And I have a middle grade book coming out, and that's what I'm trying to do in that book too.
Oh, yes.
So it's just to get kids to be aware that what's exotic for us or wild is really just your own backyard if you know their names.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, my grandmother was a birder. So when
Great.
And we knew all the birds. But okay, so that's so interesting, because you've really lived in a bunch of different places, but the thing that ties them together is your attachment to sort of the natural world around you.
It always has been that. And I think that's the bedrock of everything I want to write. It's just where I feel most at home.
That is amazing. Okay, so then I wanted to ask a follow-up question about Friends in Fiction. It is so popular, and how, has the popularity of it shocked you? And
yes.
Okay, can you talk about
yes.
How you decided to do it? What happened?
Let's talk about the pandemic. It started a year ago in April when Mary King and Patty Henry and I were friends, and we were like, oh my gosh, our book tour is canceled, and what are we going to do? And what are the bookstores going to do? Because, they count on us to come to the stores and have book sales. So we were talking, and I knew Christy Whitson Harvey and Kristen Harmel because they're gallery authors. And so we included them because their tours were canceled. We just started talking. And I think it might have been Christy who said, let's try putting it on Facebook. And we're like, okay. We just figured out what a Zoom was. I didn't know. So we put it on Mary Kay's Facebook page. And if you look on the early ones on our website, you see her daughter, who was like a ninja, crawling around underneath trying to make things work. We didn't know what we were doing. And so we've gotten quite polished over the years, and we started inviting big authors like you, Ellen. And it became a real touchstone for so many people. I'm always touched now that I'm on the road. People come up and say, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Your Friends in Fiction means so much to us. It saved us during the pandemic. And you can't take that anything but to heart and seriously, that it was our community.
Absolutely. But I mean, you built it so thoughtfully and so carefully, and it really has steamrolled. I mean, I am of the very strong opinion that the biggest book influencers in America should not be actresses, and should not even really be Oprah. It should be writers. And, Adriana is doing it, obviously.
Yes.
And the 5 of you are really building a community and getting, okay. So let me ask you this question. The first time you thought, okay, we should have somebody else on, was that pretty early on?
Well, you know what happened? We didn't know how long this was going to go at the beginning.
Right.
So we just really talked about our books for the first couple of months, because we just talked about our lives, our books. And then, our books were done, and we said, we either had a choice, get off or continue. And we didn't want to get off
Right.
because we were surprised by the followers, Ellen.
Right.
So then we invited, I think Kristen Hanna was our first guest.
Yeah.
And
That's a
and
popular
all the
one.
technical difference. Oh my God, the technical difficulties are hoot. But
Okay.
after that, we started inviting the authors, and that's when it really took off.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then people could tune in. It was like appointment television.
You know
People
what it is
tune
too,
in.
Ellen? I think the personalities of the five of us,
Yes.
it's not like just a serious conversation. It's a lot of fun.
Right.
And the personalities are changing, the questions, and people laugh. And we love it when people say, hi from Sarasota, Florida. Hi from Brooklyn, New York. And they're coming from all over the country. So it's become, like I said, a real community. And the fact that you notice it, thank you so much.
Oh my goodness. I think it's just the most awesome thing.
You're one of our favorite guests, so of course we
Thank
love
you.
it.
Well, I'm coming back. I can't remember what day, but I'm definitely coming back. Okay, so
Yeah.
people in the comments that I'm looking at are saying how much they love it, and I mean it's just absolutely apparent. Okay, I want to take some questions from the audience, but I also want to say to everybody watching that there is a small storyline about the Gamecocks. And for those of you who are not aware,
yeah, I know your son.
I am a Gamecock mother. My son just got home. He surprised me on Mother's Day from Columbia. He finished his junior year. However, that said, I think there may be an extra semester either online or at the end of the year. His freshman year, he had too much fun, but I am a Gamecocks mom. And so I just wanted to put that out there. Okay.
I'm surprised that your son went to South Carolina. That's really great.
I know. We only looked at the SEC because of he wanted a big school with beautiful women and good football, and
he chose a good school.
We looked at Clemson. He did not get in, so we defaulted to he got into Carolina, so he went to Carolina. But we looked at Georgia and Auburn and Alabama. I mean, it's a whole world down there.
Ellen, if he ever gets in trouble, you just tell him to call me. I'll be there for him. Okay. I'm just a hop, skip, and a jump away.
Very kind. Okay, now I'm trying to figure out, Mary Alice, and maybe you can help me. How do I find where the questions are?
On the chat here. Let's see what we have.
Okay, Georgia.
This is Georgia, and I've been kind of keeping track.
Oh, thanks, Georgia.
As they have come in, so that might be a little bit helpful to you. There have been so many comments from people about how much they appreciate, Mary Alice, you're writing about COVID and how much that has meant to them. And one question that has come through for both of you from people on this chat was, what did or are you looking forward to the most now that we're kind of emerging from this COVID cocoon?
Oh, for sure, seeing family. I think that's going to be the universal answer. I'm dying. I have a daughter who I got to see, who, like I told you, took me to Mexico, but she lives nearby. So that was my lucky break. But I haven't seen my son and his children and my other daughter and her children in as my daughter said, Mom, it's been going on 2 years, as if it's my fault. But that's what I want to do.
Yeah. How about you, Ellen?
Wow. I'm a little bit luckier because my children, of course, live with me. And last Mother's Day, I mean, it was almost, I don't even know how to say this, but last Mother's Day, the boys were both home because everybody was home. And so I had all my children home. And then this year, I had one at college and one at boarding school, although my son did surprise me at the very end he got home at 4:00 on Mother's Day, which was exciting. But so for my own nuclear family, last year was actually better because everybody was in the house. And then as things have loosened up, the kids went back to school. I'm looking forward to concerts. I don't know about anybody else. I love Kenny Chesney. I want to go see live music. I'm not sure when that's going to happen. But that would be one of the things that, one of the fun things that I'm really looking forward to. And I haven't seen my mom. I am going to see her. My son's graduating from high school, so I will see my mother, and that'll be exciting. But yeah, I mean, if you think about the many, many things that we've sacrificed, I mean, getting back even, one at a time will be very exciting.
Well,
Yeah.
going on book tour, like I said, it's very limited, but just seeing the fans, the readers, wow. I mean, it's heartwarming. It really is. You get a little teary-eyed. I see some of the people here that I'd seen, and going out to a restaurant, I mean, inside,
Yes.
and walking the beach without a mask. I mean, little things.
Yeah.
It's just that freedom
Yeah.
that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, let's hope we can all do it very openly, very, very
But you
soon.
know what I'm doing
Yeah.
different though, as a direct result of COVID and writing this book, is that when my grandkids used to come visit and I was working hard, they knew not to bother me up in my office, close the door, and they'd go off to the beach and I'd be in my office working.
Mhm.
No more. I'm turning off that computer and I'm choosing to spend time with them.
Wonderful. COVID has taught us all a lot about the value of things, hasn't
And
it?
that was and in the characters in the book, that was it. You know, it's your choice what legacy you're leaving. You're leaving a legacy that is a professional one. We can do that. I think we've got that under our belts. But the one you leave with your family is the more profound one. And that you can make a choice every day of how you want to spend your time.
Well, we had some practical questions, actually. And one of them, it's actually for both of you because you both write series.
Yes.
So how do you keep track of the characters and their histories, particularly when you're writing series over a number of years? How do you manage that?
Elin, you can go first on this one.
Well, I'm going to talk about your book because what I found so helpful for those of you who haven't seen it was this family.
Oh, I love it. Thank you.
So I referenced this a bunch of times because I was like, okay, wait, sometimes you can't remember like how people are related. And especially since some of it is in backstory. And I just loved this graphic and found it so helpful. In general, like Faulkner did that. I always, I'm like, if it's in the front, then I need it because it's for people like me who can't keep track. But I found that very, very helpful. And
thank you. I found this artist who I just fell in love with, and I've been wanting to do it for years, and people have been begging me for years. So this year I said, I've got to get it done. It's been 20 years. Let's give it to him finally.
Oh, yes. Well, you should have your publisher go back then and put this in every
book.
Because every one of the Beach House series, because I just found it. It's so cute.
Isn't it?
Yes, it's beautiful and extremely helpful. So anyway, but for my own series, I mean, I don't know how. I always read the book that happened right before I start. And I just sort of hope that it's like a wave that carries me. That's all I can say.
Well, what I thought was interesting, Elin, is that your series are continuous.
Yes.
One feeds the next. When I wrote the Low Country series, that was a whole different approach. You were meant to read in order.
Right.
And with the Beach House, I think it's because I never intended it to be a series when I began. And so every book that I write is independent. And I'm aware that I don't want to dump information at the beginning of it. You have to use your craft, but I do want to allow each reader to come in as if they've never read the book before. Right. And it's a very decided craft issue. As far as how do I keep in touch, I do what Elin does. I read the books before I start again. And the style sheets. You get the style sheets at the end of every book, and they define, it's the color of the eyes that trip you up every time.
That's so funny. I know you have to remember like who does what and what's happened to whom. And anyway, so really the Beach House series are really companion novels, right? So you could, in theory, they're sort of like Ellen Gilchrist. You could read, they're all sort of about the same family, but you could read them in any order, which I love.
Well, it also kind of a related question, I guess, from one of our people is, and I think this is directed at Mary Alice specifically. What was the hardest character for you to write?
In this book?
In this book, yes.
Anna, who changed her name to Anna, because she's a cantankerous kind of person, and she's she has a hard childhood, and she has a little chip on her shoulder because doesn't have the support of family or wealth that Linnea does. And yet she's cool too. I wanted to like her. And she was the one who, I think, when she came across as angry or a slob or not caring, there was a lot underneath that. She didn't know what was happening to her. She didn't know if she'd have a career at the end of this or how she was going to make ends meet. She didn't have that built-in support. And so when Linnea reaches out a hand to help her, it touches her very deeply. And I think that is the legacy of the Beach House from generation to generation, women helping women. Lovey gave it to her daughter. Her daughter gave it to another woman, Heather, and then to Linnea. And now Linnea, it's actually her motivational problem in the book, is she's trying so hard to be supportive in a friend, but to her own detriment. She's not taking care of herself. She's boxing herself in a corner. So for Annabelle to be her friend, but when your friend is not really being your friend and you're living together, that's a tough situation to write.
And another question, and this is for both of you. When did you know you wanted to be an author? I guess, when did you know you wanted to really earn your living this way, I imagine? And were you inspired by other books or other people or other authors, or how did you get there? For both Elin and Mary Alice.
I knew that I wanted to be a writer when I was 7 years old. So the story is totally true. When I was 7, when I was in 2nd grade, at the end of the year, my teacher gave every child in our class an award, something they were good at. And my award was the top author award. And as soon as she said top author, I was like, yes, I am an author.
Oh, I love that. That's exactly what happened to me.
And from there, I mean, it's nice. And my 2nd grade teacher has come to my signings over the years, and she was at my signing in 2019. Summer of '69 came out, and I was able to thank her in front of like an auditorium filled with people and say, maybe you saw something. I was 7. How good of a writer could I possibly have been? Or maybe it was because you said it that I became a writer. So
I understand that. I was a little bit older. I was in 3rd grade, and I remember her name was Mrs. Crawford, and I always told stories. Being the eldest, one of the eldest of 10 girls, we put our brothers and sisters to bed for naps and in bedtime, and I wasn't writing stories, but I was telling stories, making them up all the time, doing plays and musicals. We were a creative bunch, but it was, so I didn't think of it as anything other than I was a storyteller. Yeah. But then Mrs. Crawford said, Mary Alice, did you ever think you wanted to be a writer when you grew up? And I was like, what, that's a job? And so what she did, and I think your teacher did for you, these great mentors, right? They named it. What we knew we wanted to do, but we didn't know what to call it. They gave it a name. And I think ever since then, when someone said, what do you want to be when you grow up? A writer, an author, I knew.
That's fabulous. So I think we should wrap this up with one last question. And that is, what are you both working on next?
Elin, you start. I'm dying to hear.
I am working on so I have given myself a massive break because I was writing 2 books a year. I was writing a standalone summer novel, and then I've been writing a series, first a holiday series and then the Caribbean series for 7 years. And so I'm cut down to 1 book a year, which is thrilling. I cannot tell you how thrilling. And so right now I'm working on my novel for the summer of 2022, which is called The Hotel Nantucket.
Well, also the Golden Girls coming out next month.
Yes.
Can we just say that?
Yes. Golden Girls.
Which I'm dying to read.
I'm already past that. Yeah. Golden Girls coming out June 1st.
Yes, out next month, and I might comment once again at the very top of the chat. If all of you listening scroll up, there are links to buy Mary Alice's newest book, which has just come out, but also to pre-order Ellen's book, which is coming out in
and I'm dying to read it.
So
for me, I have a book coming out June 15th, which I'm really excited about. It's my first middle grade novel, and it's called The Islanders. And I've been wanting to write for this audience for a very, very long time. And I'm so excited it's finally happened. And it's the story of these three unlikely friends, these three 10-year-old kids who get stuck on an island over the summer. It's the worst summer ever in their mind. It's Jake, who's a military brat whose dad was injured in the war. And he has to go spend the summer on this remote island off Isle of Palms called Deweese Island, real place, with his grandmother. Ugh. And then you have Little Lovey, who people who know my series know Little Lovey. She was born in the beach house. She's 10 years old now, and she's in the book. She's a little Hermione Granger. And then you have an African-American boy, Macon, from a wealthy family in Atlanta. And this island does exist. No cars, no stores. And for this family, because grandma doesn't believe in it, no Wi-Fi. And it's these kids who think it's going to be the worst summer, but they become unlikely friends, and they explore the island, and they get unplugged. You got to unplug your kids and give them some time so they aren't afraid of the bugs, and what they think is wild is their own backyard in time. So that's coming out June 15th. And the next book I'm writing is one of them anyway, will be the next sequel. And it's a series.
Super fabulous. Speaking of unplugging,
Good segue.
I think that our time has run its course. And I so appreciate both you, Mary Alice and Ellen, for being with us this evening, taking time to do this. And I so appreciate everyone who was in the audience tonight for being with us. And I wish all of you a wonderful post-COVID life. And I wish all of you good times on a beach somewhere.
And thank you, Ellen, for coming to talk to me. Love you, darling.
Honored. Pre-order, guys.
Oh, and by the way, let's just say a quick plug. Reunion Beach. Ellen and I are in Reunion Beach.
We're busy. We're busy
Yes.
ladies.
Busy ladies.
Thank you
all.
Georgia. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.